the environment did very well out of the Hawke government. Its supporters delivered votes and a pragmatic government responded.
If people had asked at the beginning of our period of government who was the least likely to become a raging greenie, I guess Graham would have been fairly high up in the stakes.
Graham's always been a zealous fellow, zealous in the best sense of the word, keen to do good works, good things, and I think he saw an opportunity there, and he had the support of the Prime Minister, and he also had the support of the Treasurer.
It was a very happy mixture of good politics with what was right. It was good politics at the time, obviously, and I played it for all that it was worth.
Graham Richardson discovered the environment as a backroom number cruncher even before he became a minister. The battle fought out in the forests between greenies and loggers was reflected inside the cabinet. Colleagues who favoured development saw Richardson as a cynical manipulator of the Green vote, while Richardson saw himself as a genuine convert to the Green cause.
I went up into the forest with Bob Brown and a couple of his colleagues, and we had a little picnic lunch on the shores of Lake Sydney, which is one of those very small but stunning mountain lakes in Tassie. And I was impressed by their arguments, but also was impressed by them because they were so genuine.
I never felt that Graham was terribly comfortable in the environment and the bush as opposed to talking about it in Canberra. And I can remember vividly a helicopter trip we did around the area of the Franklin with Bob Brown, and we landed at the old dam construction site, and Bob was terribly excited about taking us into the bush to show us this 1,000-year-old Huon pine tree that had been damaged by the construction workers as an act of vandalism before they left. And to get there we had to plummet through 50 or 60 metres of very dense bush and through mud and so on. And Graham was desperately uncomfortable in that situation. He was deeply concerned that his Reeboks were going to get dirty and that he may be attacked by leeches, and he was very happy to get back in the helicopter.
I took the view that here was an opportunity to do something good, which was pretty rare for me. So there on the shores of Lake Sydney, as I sucked a soggy sandwich, I decided that these people had a lot to offer and that I'd endeavour to become their champion for whatever that was going to be worth. So it all happened.
The electorate at large was becoming more environmentally conscious, and to a political opportunist, this meant votes, and this could be targeted and implemented.
Richardson's first target was the area of greatest concern to the environment movement, the rainforest of far north Queensland. Hawke had refused to confront the state government over its decision to build a road through pristine wilderness. It was 1987, an election year. Richardson, still a backbencher, seized the opportunity to grab the Green vote.
The first thing I did in a concrete sense was really push Hawke over the northern rainforests. And that required a bit of pushing because at the time I think the government were prepared not to heritage list very much of it at all. And I really pushed for something big on that.
Bob Hawke took Richardson's advice and tied up the Green vote one day after calling an election, the 11th of July 1987.
My government has decided to proceed immediately towards nomination of the wet tropics of northeast Queensland to the World Heritage List. And this area includes the magnificent Daintree Forest.
The Prime Minister had the Green vote in his pocket and the opposition on the run. While Keating pondered his future, Hawke rewarded one of the other architects of the 87 victory, Senator Graham Richardson. Promoted virtually straight from the backbench to the cabinet, he was now legitimately Environment Minister.
But I really wanted it because I knew that it was, there was so much to do, and it excited me. It was the main area of interest in my life at the time. You know, quite apart from the politics of it and quite apart from the people who've announced that I was never serious about it or whatever, it was the only area of policy at the time in which I had an abiding interest.
I think Graham Richardson's influence on the Prime Minister was perhaps the greatest contributing factor to the environmental outcomes that were achieved. He's the only minister that I've encountered who could ring Hawke and organise a meeting with him at 5 minutes' notice. He was the only minister that I dealt with who Hawke frequently rang.
It would be very foolish of any leader or person in a leadership position at that time not to have taken him seriously. And my personal relations were good, so he always could come and talk with me, and did. I think we were a very good team in a very important period.
Richardson's first big battle in Cabinet was over Tasmania's forests. Should they be logged or not? Just before the 1987 election, an inquiry was set up to find out.
The Committee of Inquiry.
The committee, headed by the Supreme Court Judge Michael Helsham, stunned everybody and outraged environmentalists by coming up with the wrong result. Most of the forest, he said, could be logged. The government was faced with a dilemma that would deeply divide it.
It came down saying the wrong thing and we had to knock it over, which was not a very palatable thing for the government to do. And we had a cabinet meeting that went for days on that question. Days.
Graham's a very colourful figure. Graham presents sometimes like a Guy Fawkes display, or sometimes like the most laconic, phlegmatic, outback bushy that there could be. And we were in here a long time, bound together in this sort of dance around the environment and development debate. And I think he went through all of the personalities and personas that he has, and all of the styles of argument that he's good at.
It just went on and on and on. It seemed like forever. But Billy, the only reason it went on was Hawke. I mean, if he was just declaring himself, I wouldn't have to answer anything. And so I'd have much preferred that.
Do the best we can, but obviously in the outcome we won't satisfy everybody. But as I say, c'est la vie.
You had a whole cabinet that had to be talked to. And there was a lot of pressure being applied to cabinet ministers. Hawke didn't apply any. It should be noted that Hawke didn't ring anyone up and say, put your hand up. It was all left to me. It should also be remembered that he came in at the very end of that debate. My ally, early on, loud and strong, was Keating. Not remembered by many, but the cabinet minutes will show it. The first heavy to come in on my side and go for it was Keating.
Now, some of the trees were very old there and are reaching a point where they were going to die naturally after so many hundred years. And there was an argument, look, log them now, they'll go anyway. But log which ones? So I came down, if you like, on the conservative side of that argument. That was to preserve them. Because they are, I think, part of the World Heritage.
He was always going to be somewhat sympathetic if I brought it to him, because we were pretty close, and rightly so. I had done a lot for him, and you know, I don't think I was ever going to be dismissed out of hand. So at least I was able to get issues on the table and have him treat them seriously, whereas he mightn't have if I hadn't been the one doing it.
Graham Richardson had achieved the seemingly impossible, the wholesale public abandonment of a government report.
The decision, I don't think that anyone should look at cabinet decisions of this kind as victories or losses for any individuals. It's the issues that are important.
Virtually all of the area was nominated for World Heritage.
Look, I mean, the criticism was that we didn't have some grand strategy. The truth being, of course, the development ministers were never going to let you have one. It was a great criticism for them to make, because they wouldn't let you have one on the one hand, and on the other hand they could criticise you for not having one. So I was in a lose-lose and was often losing ground because of it. I mean, I was always getting pilloried over that.
I do know that he was able to achieve a number of very, very successful outcomes, which, as an environmentalist, we have to be, I have to be very grateful for. But at the end of it, he wasn't about environmentalism or instilling that in his cabinet colleagues, bringing them all together towards a new understanding of how we ought to be interrelating the economy and the environment. He was about knocking people down and dragging them out. That was how decisions were taken in that period.
The environment did very well out of the Hawke government. Its supporters delivered votes and a pragmatic government responded.